Good morning, everyone. Are you all online?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, how are your exams? Have you done nicely? Or was there any problem? Is my slide visible to you all? Yes? Is the slide visible to you all?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So, let us start. Shall we? Why no response today? Everybody is tired after giving the exam or what?
Yes, sir.
That
Yes,
is a
sir, a
part of
little
life.
bit.
Yes?
Yes, sir, tired.
Yeah, of course. Mentally, everybody becomes tired after giving one exam. A couple of days needs to be given a break, but unfortunately the time is running out, so naturally we have to finish our course by the mid of July. So only 1.5 weeks, 1.5 months is left with us to complete our course in for full. So naturally we just can't waste our time. But of course, maybe today I'll go in a little bit slower manner. Don't worry about that. That is the only thing I can do on my part. Okay. So, is there any doubt in the question that was asked in your exam regarding this UPM? Was there any question which was quite a tough one and you people felt that it was tough for you all to solve it? Is there any such problem?
No, sir.
Okay, so almost all the problems are we have discussed in the class, right? Isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, that was the best part because my target was to do whatever problems are likely to come in the exam in the class itself, so that almost all of you can answer it and get good marks. That is always my aim. Okay, well and good. So I am happy that you people have done nicely. So let us now start with a new chapter, and we are just starting with the second half of the syllabus. So, so as I told you, I am sorry. So as I told you that your entire syllabus is basically divided into four parts. So the first part was dealing with your electric fields and particularly electric field at rest. Okay, that is we were dealing with electrostatic field. Now we will start with this magnetostatic field, and once we complete both electrostatic and magnetostatic field, then we will talk about the electromagnetic fields. Let me give you one idea that when the electric field is stagnant, that means the field is not changing with respect to time, or your magnetic field is not changing with respect to time, then these two fields can be considered separately from each other. Okay, that means if the electric field is stagnant or stationary or is constant, which is not changing with respect to time, then obviously only electric field will exist. Okay, similarly if the magnetic field is stationary or it is static in nature, or rather I will say it is not changing with respect to time, then we can say that the magnetic field is a different or individual entity. But if the electric field is changing with respect to time, then remember a magnetic field always resolves. Similarly, if the magnetic field is changing with respect to time, then we can say that a electric field is going to be produced. So that is why we have divided this entire syllabus into four categories. The first category is for purely electrostatic field where the electric field was not changing with respect to time. So we studied about that different aspects of this electric field. We studied when the electric field was stationary in nature. Similarly, in these chapters, or rather, I will say in a couple of chapters, chapter number 27 and 28, we will cover this electrostatic, sorry, magnetostatic field. And in this particular two chapter, sorry, particularly in these two chapters, we will see that the magnetic field is going to remain constant with respect to time, and we'll study the different aspects of this magnetic field. But beyond this chapter number 28, that is from 29 to 30, we'll study about the electromagnetic field, over where the electric field is neither a static, your electric field is not going to be a static one, it is going to change with respect to time. Similarly, your magnetic field is also going to change with respect to time. And when both of them are going to change with respect to time, we cannot say that it is not related to each other. Both of them are dependent on each other. For example, if the magnetic field is changing with respect to time, then it is going to lead to the formation of electric field. Now, one very simple example I am giving, that in your schooling, many a times you have studied that about this DC generator. So in this DC generator, what happens? There is a set of coils, or you can have a magnet, and you are having a coil. Okay, or rather, I will say there is a coil which is stationary, and inside this coil, a bar magnet is moving to and fro. So if this is the case, then the magnetic field is changing with respect to time, which is linked to the coil. And in this way, you will see that at the end of the coil, some electricity is produced. So if the magnetic field is changing with respect to time, then it always leads to the formation of electricity, or rather I will say an electric field. So we'll talk about all those details in detail when we'll go to chapter number 29. Even your light is a electromagnetic wave, and it is only produced when both electric field or a magnetic field is changing with respect to time. So if we are changing the electric field, then it leads to the magnetic field, and when these two fields interacts with each other, both of them are dependent on each other, and if they interacts with each other, then it leads to electromagnetic waves. So one very good example of your electromagnetic waves is the light that you are receiving from the sun or from any artificial source. So all these things we will cover. So for the time being, in chapter number 27, we will only talk about the magnetic field which is stationary in nature. That means this strength of the magnetic field is not changing with respect to time. That means I am just imagine that I am having a permanent magnet, and it is giving out some magnetic force or magnetic flux, and this flux is not actually changing with respect to time. A very nice method to produce a time varying magnetic field is to pass a varying current through a coil. So in a coil, if I am going to change the current, magnitude of current, then obviously the magnetic field is also going to change. So in that case, it is actually producing a varying magnetic field. But for the timing, we will only concentrate on the magnetostatic field. Over here, we make use of a coil by injecting a constant DC source. So that is usually known as electromagnet, or we may use permanent magnets. Permanent magnets comes in different shapes and sizes. So the basic one is the bar magnet, which you people must have seen in your schooling days. Similarly, we have U-shaped magnets, we have C-shaped magnets, which are also known as your horseshoe-shaped magnets. We have other types of magnet like which is looks like a disc or a ring. So these types of magnets are also available in the market. Students used to buy all these magnets to do some experiments and do some project work. So there, these are nothing but your permanent magnets, and these magnets always exhibit a constant magnetic field. That means the field which is going to remain constant with respect to time. So let us start with this concept of this electromagnetic electrostatics. And in this we will study about the electromagnetic field, we will study about the magnetic forces, what are the different aspects, how actually they are going to interact with each other. All these things we will study in this chapter. And the best thing is that there is a lot of similarity between your electrostatic field and magnetostatic field, because both of them are actually interrelated to each other, but when they it is not changing with respect to time, then we will consider them to be two different entities. But you will see that there are a lot of similarities between the two fields, but of course they are accompanied with a lot of dissimilarities as well. So let us talk about the similarities and dissimilarities between the two types of field. Okay, so the first point over here says the most familiar example of magnetism are permanent magnets. Okay, so you have a bar magnet or a permanent bar magnets are usually permanent in nature, and your bar, let us say this is a bar magnet, and it is having two number of poles. Every magnet in this world is going to have two number of poles. Now, this is a permanent magnet and it is going to exhibit a constant magnetic field. Why it is so? Because the magnetic flux or the magnetic field lines which are coming out or moving towards any of the poles, because in the south pole it moves towards it, and from the north pole it moves away from the pole. So these types of things are also quite similar in case of positive and negative charges. But truly speaking, both of them are quite different from each other. Now, in this case, in case of your permanent magnet, these fluxes are going to remain constant, or the magnitude of this flux or the strength of this magnet is going to remain constant with respect to time. Similarly, we have electromagnets. So over here, I have a set of coils. I have a coil with a number of turns, and suppose I am going to feed this coil from a DC source. Now you all know that in case of DC source the voltage is constant, and since this is a means a closed circuit, a constant current I is going to flow. Now this I is actually responsible for creating the magnetic field. Now, since this I is also a constant, it is not changing with respect to time. Therefore, the magnetic field that is produced by this electromagnet is also going to remain constant with respect to time. That means its strength is not going to change with respect to time. But just imagine, suppose I will replace this DC source by means of an AC source, then in that case, the current is going to vary with respect to time in a sinusoidal manner. So naturally, the magnetic field is also going to vary sinusoidally with respect to time. So this is the major difference between a static magnetic field and a changing or varying magnetic field. Okay. So what are the different examples? So one of the examples that I showed is that of a permanent magnet, which is nothing but a bar magnet. Similarly, there are also some magnets which looks like horseshoe. So these types of magnet are quite common in electrical instruments. Okay, particularly in electrical instruments like your ammeter, like your voltmeter. These types of magnets are quite commonly used because the strength of these types of magnets are quite high in comparison to the bar magnets. So even there are some magnets which look like a disc or ring. So you might have seen that in your woofers and your tweeters, you have these types of magnet for the speakers. So these types of magnet are known as disc magnet or ring magnet. So what happens? So this one forms the north pole and this one has the south pole. The outer ring is known as the south pole. And these types of things are particularly useful in producing linear motion. So particularly when some electrical signals is given to a woofer, so naturally what happens, they used to they have a cone across these types of magnet, and it used to move to and fro. So in that way, it moves in such a manner which is quite similar to the type of signal or electrical signal which is fed to it. So naturally, it is going to produce the sound in that fashion. So this is how the different types of permanent magnets look like, how they are going to be used. And another most important example is a compass. So basically, what you have a compass which usually looks like the watch, and it is going to have a needle, magnetic needle, which is usually shaped in the form of a rhombus, and it has a north and south pole. So over here you have the different markings which indicates the different direction. Now this north pole is always going to point towards the north pole of the globe or your earth. Similarly, the south pole is actually going to point towards the south pole of the earth. So in this way, these are some of the important examples of your permanent magnet which produces a magnetostatic field. Next important fundamental property of this magnetism is that your magnets, permanent magnet or your electromagnet, they always interact with moving charges. Okay. One very important property of this magnet is that usually what happens, suppose let us say I have a permanent magnet over here. Okay. I have a permanent magnet over here. So naturally it is going to produce a magnetic field. So let us say these are the field lines. Fine. These lines are going to diverge from the North Pole. They are going to move out from the North Pole and from the South Pole it always tries to enter towards the South Pole. So this is usually the shape of your magnetic field. Now what happens? Suppose I will place a charge over here, maybe a positive charge or maybe a negative charge, and if I'll place it, nothing is going to happen because this charge is actually not moving, it is stationary in nature. So if it is stationary in nature, it is not going to experience any sort of force because of this magnetic field. But just imagine if the charge starts moving, then only this charge is going to experience a force because of this magnet. So always remember that unlike your electric field, the magnetic field responds only to moving charges. For example, in case of electric field, suppose I have this source of the electric field and this is the electric field because of this positive charged body. Now if I'll place a positive charge over here, it is going to be repelled. Similarly, if I'll place a negative charge over here, it is going to be attracted. So this is the reason why these charges are not moving. But if we look the same scenario in case of a magnetic field, that means by I have simply replaced this charged body by means of this magnet. In that case, what happens? If I am going to place either a positive charge or a negative charge over here, nothing is going to happen because both of them are stationary in nature. But the moment these charges, whether it is a positive charge or a negative charge, starts moving, in that case, it is going to experience some sort of force. So we will learn what is the magnitude of that force, in which direction the force will be directed. All this stuff we'll study after all. Okay. So now let us try to see how actually the electric forces are created because of this electric field. Okay, just have a look. A charge produces an electric field in the space. Okay, so I have a charged body over here, or I have a single point charge, doesn't matter whether it is a point charge, test charge, or it is a charged body. It is actually going to create a electric field around itself in the three dimensions. Okay, now how the electric force is actually produced? The force is only produced when I will bring another charge into inside this electric field. So if it is a positive charge, obviously it will face or experience a force of repulsion. Similarly, if it is a negative charge and placed inside this electric field created by a positively charged body, then it will face or experience a force of attraction. Now, similarly, what happens in case of how this magnetic force is going to arise? Very simple. Let us say I have a magnetic field over here, which is created, let us say, by this permanent magnet north and south pole. Okay, so in this field, what happens if I am going to place another magnet? Okay, if I am going to place another magnet, then obviously that magnet is going to experience some sort of force of attraction or repulsion depending on the position of its poles. Okay, so if I place a magnet with the north pole aiming towards the north pole of this permanent magnet, then there will be a force of repulsion. Now, similarly, if I will be having a south pole facing towards this north pole, then obviously there will be a force of attraction. So, in this way, it is going to experience a force only when I am going to place another permanent magnet or electromagnet inside a magnetic field. Now, the second thing is that suppose I have some moving charge. Suppose, let us say, an electron is moving in this direction and it enters into the magnetic field. And when it enters into the magnetic field, it is obviously going to have some sort of velocity or speed. Now, since it is moving, then also I have told you that the charge at rest is not going to experience any force. But if the charge is moving, then it is obviously going to face some amount of magnetic force. Now, in place of this point charge, let me say I have a current carrying conductor. So, if I am going to have a current carrying conductor, obviously you know that when the current is going to flow through a conductor, it is known as conduction current, and it is because of the flow of electrons inside the conductor. Now, when the electrons are moving, naturally what happens if they are placed inside this magnetic field, then also they are going to experience some sort of force because of this magnetic field. So this is how the force is actually created, and this is the major difference between your electric force and your magnetic force. So the most important thing is that in both the cases you must have a source of the field. Whether if it is an electric field, you must have a charged body, or you must have a point charge or a test charge. Anything must be there which is going to create the field. Secondly, in case of your electric field, if I am going to place a charge which is at rest or the charge is moving, in both the cases, it is going to experience some electric force. Whereas, in case of your magnetic field, the source is either a permanent magnet or it may be an electromagnet. Now, if I am going to place a magnet, either a permanent magnet or a electromagnet inside this magnetic field, obviously there will be some force which is going to be experienced. And this force may be attractive or repulsive depending on the orientation of the pole. Secondly, if I am having a moving charge placed inside the conductor, placed inside the magnetic field, then in that case also it is going to experience some force. Secondly, if I am having a conductor, conductors are nothing but it is going to carry the movement of electrons. So therefore, since the electrons are moving at drift velocity inside this conductor, therefore they are going to experience some magnetic force. I hope everybody have understood it. Is there any doubt? Okay. So please remember the major difference between the two types of field. Now let us talk about the different properties of magnetic field. Okay, so we have talked about the properties of charge. So over there we have talked about like charges repel, unlike charges attract. Similarly, we have talked about the concept of polarization, where if we are going to place a neutral body near to a charged body, then there will be induction of surface charge, and because of that, there will be force of attraction between them. Then we have studied about the quantization of charge. Then we have studied about the conservation of charge. All these things we have studied in case of electric charge properties. Now let us try to understand or learn about the different properties of magnet. So the most common property of this magnet is that opposite poles attract and like poles repel. That means in this case, you are having two permanent magnets let us say this is a bar magnet and this is a bar magnet. So North Pole and this is South Pole, both of them are oriented towards each other. Therefore, there will be force of attraction. Similarly, over here there is South Pole and here there is North Pole. Again, both of them are unlike poles. Therefore, there will be a force of attraction between them. Similarly, in case of your like poles, when we have the North Pole is oriented towards the North Pole of another magnet, or the South Pole is oriented towards the South Pole of the other magnet, then there will be a force of repulsion. So we can say in one word that like poles repel, whereas unlike poles or opposite poles, they are going to attract each other. Next property is similar to that of a polarization. So here you have a magnet and here you have an unmagnetized piece of iron. So usually three important metals usually exhibit this magnetic property. They are known as your iron, nickel and cobalt, or a combination of them. That means I am talking about the alloy. So if I am having iron or nickel or cobalt, or I am having, let us say, alloy of iron nickel or iron cobalt or nickel cobalt, then all of them are going to be attracted towards the magnet irrespective of the pole. That means over here I am having the North Pole oriented towards this nail made out of iron. So obviously it is going to be attracted. If I am having the South Pole oriented towards this nail, then also it is going to be attracted. This property is quite similar to the property of polarization. Okay. Next, let us talk about from where this magnet is actually exhibiting. Now, usually what happens, the atoms and your subatomic particles and your atoms, they also exhibit magnetic property. And it is because of the orientation of the electrons and the movement around them. Now you all know that only at critical temperature the movement of the electrons stop, whereas under ambient temperature there is always some sort of motion, or rather I will say vibration in those atoms. And because of this movement there is some sort of magnetic property or some magnetism is displayed by these atoms. Now, your earth itself is also going to behave like a magnet. Your earth itself is a very big magnet. Now, the north, you know that the earth is just like a sphere, just looks like a sphere, and over here on one tip I have the North Pole and on the other tip I have the South Pole. Okay, fine. Now, why this earth is actually behaving like a magnet? It is because inside the earth's core there are some molten metals. Okay, these molten metals, they are constantly in motion. Why they are in motion? It is because of the convection property of the liquid. Why there is convection? Because on the outer surface the liquid is cooler, and in the very center core of this earth there is a lot of heat. Therefore, since there is a temperature difference between them, there will be a convection flow of these molten metals, and because of this the earth is actually displaying a magnetic property. So if it is displaying a magnetic property, you must know that every magnet always comes in two poles, North Pole and the South Pole. So similarly, your earth is also going to have a North Pole and South Pole. But there are some important things that we must learn about the magnetism of this earth. Now, suppose let us say this is the axis of rotation of the earth. That means around this axis, the earth is rotating. So this point is known as your North Pole and this point is known as your South Pole. Okay, and your axis of rotation is also inclined by some angle. Okay, of course I don't know how much angle it is inclined, but at least I know that it is going to be inclined by some angle to a
Sir,
straight line.
33 degree.
Okay, thank you very much. I didn't know that thing. Okay, fine. Thank you. It is 33 degrees. Fine. So I'll remember this. Okay. So now what happens? Suppose I will take a permanent magnet. So let us say I will take a giant magnet like this. Okay. Now, actually, what happens? We all know that like poles repel. So obviously, if I am going to keep the north pole of this magnet over here, then obviously this is going to repel at the north pole itself. North pole of this magnet and the north pole of the earth both are going to repel each other. Okay, but then how come we are saying that the tip of the magnet, which is actually at the north pole, is actually the north pole of the magnet? The truth is that the magnets, the original pole of this magnet is south pole over here and north pole over here. Okay, but you people just make a comparison. We have studied something known as conventional flow of current or conventional current and your actual current. Your actual current is along the direction of the electrons, whereas your conventional current is along the direction of the positive charges. And we know that positive charges don't move. But in order to define or in order to maintain the concept that current flows from a higher potential to lower potential, we assume that the positive charges are actually flowing and the direction of the positive charge is known as the current or conventional current. But the actual flow of current is because of the electrons and it is opposite to that. Now the exactly the same concept will be applied over here. So we very well know that north pole, they are going to repel each other. So naturally, the magnet's actual pole is south pole over here. But since the south pole and this is north pole, because why we use a magnet or a compass? It is only to indicate the direction. So if I will make this as the south pole of the compass magnet, then obviously there will be confusion. So rather we say that the compass magnet or any magnet that we use commercially or we use in everyday life is having a north pole over here, which indicates that this pole is going to point towards the geographic north pole of the earth. Okay, please be clear about this concept. The truth is that inside this magnet there is actually the south pole which is moving facing this north pole of the earth. But if we will just name it as south pole, there will be a lot of confusion among the masses. So in order to eradicate this confusion, what we did, we told that any magnet with the pole which is pointing towards the north pole of the earth will be defined as the north pole of that magnet. Okay, so please remember this concept. Now, so if I am
Sir,
going
one
to
doubt.
say yes.
Sir, if Earth acts like a magnet, then why everything is attracted towards it? Only the metals could be attracted.
Okay, let me tell you in a very clear thing. Okay, very nice question. Now remember, there are four major forces in this universe. Number one, or the strongest among them, is the nuclear force of attraction. Second comes your magnetic force, sorry, your gravitational force. Number two. Number three comes your magnetic force or the electric forces of attraction. And the fourth one I actually can't remember, but these are the four number of fundamental forces that is going to work in this universe. Actually, Einstein was trying to build up a theory which is going to relate all these forces, and it was popularly known as the unified field theory. And unfortunately you could not leave that much to bring out a relationship between all the forces, but at least we know that there are four fundamental forces: the force of attraction or repulsion, and this is because of the nuclear forces. Second, the force of attraction or repulsion because of the magnetic forces or the electric forces. This comes under the second category. The third category is the gravitational force. And the fourth one I could not remember. That is also not a common force. I have read it somewhere. Now, out of all these things, just remember since this earth is a very massive one, okay, and the core of the earth is a very smaller in comparison to the entire volume of the earth. Just imagine that if this is the globe or the earth and your core is this much, okay. And because of the movement of the molten metals inside this core, it is exhibiting your magnetic properties. Now the thing is that the magnetic property of this earth is very weak in comparison to the gravitational force of the earth, and it is because of the gravitational force of this earth and the other planets. You can see the earth is attracting a very big surface or a volume like the moon. The moon is not moving away because of the gravity of this earth. Just imagine the massiveness of this gravitational force in comparison to the magnetic forces of this earth. So depending on the magnitude of these types of forces, we can just imagine. I told you that the strongest of the forces is the nuclear force. But when I was teaching you regarding the principle of this EMF source, what I told that because of some chemical reaction, the electrons or the nuclear forces of attraction between the positive charge and negative charges are broken. Okay, so in this case, the external force of chemical reaction is having more energy or more strength than the strong nuclear force. Similarly, if I am going to use a photovoltaic cell, I am using the sunlight to displace the electron from the outer valency of this atom of this silicon material. In that way, I am generating electricity in case of PV cell. Now this electron, even though it is a valence electron, it is not less attracted. It is quite the force of attraction between the positive nucleus and this valence electron in the PV cell is also quite high. But just imagine a simple light coming from the sun, from a far off sun, and one of this neutron is actually dismantling or displacing this valence electron. So depending on the magnitude of the forces, we can categorize it. Now in case of your earth, the magnetic force of attraction is very feeble in comparison to the massive gravitational force. Got it?
Sir, then
Got it?
magnetic forces and gravitational forces are different, right?
Of course they are different. Magnetic force is completely different from the gravitational force. And just
Sir,
one
then,
yes, tell me.
sir, then the planets when attract other planets, like the sun is attracting all other planets. In that
Yes.
cases, magnetic and gravitational both forces are used.
No, only gravitational force is used. Actually, the truth is that your unified theory says that all of these forces work together in order to give a force of attraction or repulsion. But till now, no clear cut relation is brought. Therefore, we cannot say whether it is because of the gravitational force that the sun is attracting the planets, or it is because of the magnetic force, or because of the combination of all the forces. So we are actually in a dilemma which force is actually responsible for the attraction between the planets or any object. Now the thing is that obviously all these forces are coming into picture because all of the forces are going to attract each other. Just imagine. So in the sun, there is positive charges, okay, and this earth is far away and there are electrons. Now obviously this positive and negative charges, they will attract each other, but the thing is that this force of attraction is so feeble, we simply say that there is no force of attraction. Okay, so we have to see out of all these forces which one is actually having the highest magnitude of attraction or repulsion. So we have to make a comparison. So what actually, let me tell you some idea about this unified magnetic unified field theory. It says that all the forces are actually going to work simultaneously. But he was actually, Einstein was trying to formulate or bring out an expression which is actually going to give the real value. Suppose let us say that the equation may be something like this: magnetic force, x times of magnetic force plus y times of electric force plus z times of gravitational force plus b times of this nuclear force. All of them is equal to the force of either attraction or repulsion is equal to F. So I don't know actually whether it may be something like this, but now the thing is that if x is 1 and y is 0.1, now you can guess which force is actually responsible for the major part of this force. Got it? Are you getting what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So actually, I am also not qualified, neither I am eligible to explain this in detail because I am not a person from this background. But at least this logic do applies that the planets are attracted towards each other by this force of gravity. And remember one thing, gravity is not same everywhere. Gravity is depending on the dimension across it, which is usually known as a that means depending on the massiveness of the planetary bodies, the gravity used to change. So obviously I have read a lot of stuff. Not only that, I have also studied one book on Stephen Hawkins, and he has explained this gravity in a very nice manner. He has actually told that it is just like a fabric. You place a very small, lighter plastic bulb on it. It will be at means the fabric will be lowered by some extent. But if you will put an iron ball, it will simply move down. Then there are many things you can learn from these books. Nowadays, these books are quite obsolete. Nobody goes through it. In the website, you go and just have a look. Rather, you follow some videos. They will explain it in a very lucid manner. So during our time, no such facility was available. So we have to rely on books, and it was taking a lot of time. So this was the thing. I am actually not very sure. But one thing is very sure that among all these forces, gravitational force is the most powerful one. Now, let me give you one example. Have you heard about black holes? Now, black hole is having so high a gravity that even your light waves cannot escape. That means it is going to pull that light in hole, and therefore, since no light is available, so everything looks very black. So that is why they are known as black holes. So I have studied a lot of stuff on that. Okay, got it. Well,
Sir, I
yes.
have heard someone saying that gravity is the weakest force in nature, weakest
Okay.
in physics.
No, what I told,
Yes, sir. It
I
is weakest
told.
one.
Okay, okay. Many. Okay, I always appreciate different opinions, and that should be the way we should learn, because you people are also having a great number of ideas, sometimes better than the teacher. The teacher is after all a human being having some limitation. Okay, so let me tell you. I told you that if Einstein could have formulated this. Actually, I am not telling it from my own concept. I am actually telling what Stephen Hawkins has tried to explain in his book. So what actually I am actually trying to explain it in a very simple manner. I am a teacher. My work is to make it simple. Okay. So what actually is that all the four number of fundamental forces that are interrelated to each other, and all of them combinedly form either the force of attraction or repulsion. Now, sometimes you consider that, for example, in case of subatomic particle, gravitational force is the weakest. Obvious thing, because when a atom or an electron is spinning around its axis, it is exhibiting your electric field as well as your magnetic field. Well and good. So it is having some force which is quite appreciable in comparison to gravity. Now the nuclear force is the most prominent one. So because there is a positive charge is present in the neutron or the nucleus, and there are electrons which are on the outer valency, means outer orbits, so naturally there will be a force of attraction between them which actually binds one atom. Okay, fine. So in this case, just see the chronology, or just see the magnitude or the chronology in the magnitude of the force. The nuclear force is the highest among all of them, whereas your electric force, magnetic force of attraction and repulsion, they are quite appreciable. whereas your gravitational force is weakest. It may not exist, but it looks like it may not exist. But I have told you, if there is anything known as matter, and every matter has two fundamental things. One is the charge, the other one is the mass. And what is this mass? The mass is because of this gravity. So how can you neglect that? Even your atom or your electron is having a weight of 9.1 into 10 to the minus 31 kg. Just imagine, if you can measure the weight of this electron, then obviously there is some gravitational force which is actually acting on this feeble electron. Otherwise, you could not find the mass of it. Got the idea what I'm saying? Are you getting what I'm
Yes,
saying?
sir.
No, okay. Now I mean to say that depending on the scenario, these forces are going to vary. Now, sometimes the gravitational force is highest among all, whereas the nuclear forces are feeble. They are means they can be neglected. Whereas that means, particularly, let me tell you, in case of very massive bodies, gravitational force is highest. Whereas in subatomic particles, the nuclear forces are highest, whereas the other two forces are in between. So this is the concept. And depending on the scenario, depending on the object, or depending on the interaction of the field, the magnitude of this or the priority of these forces do varies. So you simply cannot say that gravitational force is the weakest. Gravitational force is, of course, the weakest only in case of subatomic particles or inside your atom. Whereas the gravitational force is very, very massive in case of black holes. Because even light being an energy cannot escape it. Just imagine the gravitational force. Just imagine that there is a star which is dying fast. It forms a stellar, then it becomes a dwarf, white dwarf, and finally it shrinks on its own weight in such a way that it forms a black hole. Now the question is why it is sinking. It is sinking because of the gravity between the masses, between the particles, between the atoms inside that star. And somewhere I have read that even a star which is greater than the size of this earth will fall down to a size which can be the size of a spoon. Okay. So this is the effect of this gravity. So depending on the material, depending on the dimension in which we are talking, we can say which force is greater or which force is weaker. Got it?
Sir, you were actually saying that the fourth force, that is actually the gravitational force only.
No, 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 no. I am telling that there are four types of fundamental forces. I remember only three types.
Yes, sir, but actually that is gravitational force. The fourth one is.
Yes, but I am missing one of the forces. I don't know which force because that is not a common force that I have heard. Only three types of forces I remember. One is because of this nuclear forces. The other one is the
Sir, in
electromagnetic.
nuclear force there are two forces, strong and weak forces. That
Okay,
are
maybe.
first and second.
Okay, yes, so I don't have much idea about that. Maybe I have read it 25 years back when I was studying plus two. I was studying plus two in 96. So 25 years back, I could have, may not be, I haven't remembered it. Okay, I'm sorry for that. Okay,
Sir,
so shall we move? Ask
another
me.
thing I said wrong. That is 33 degree. It is actually 23 degree.
It is 23 degree. Okay, I will remember it. Okay,
Yes,
fine.
sir.
Okay, you told me because for the next class I will tell 23 degree, but I will also confirm it myself after opening my physics book of plus two. Of course, they are with me, but it will take a lot of time to search for that book and find out. Or I will refer to the net, no problem. Shall we refer to the net right now? Let us see. Let us see for ourselves. Let us see what is the angle. It is You're right, it is 23.5 degree. Okay. It is 23. Okay, we'll go for Science Direct. That is a very good website. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, it is 23.5 degree. Fine. It is 23.5 degree. So you are almost correct. Thank you. Okay. So let us now move on. So at least we come to the know that the Earth, the magnetic north pole of the Earth and the north pole of the Earth both are not on the same line, rather there is a deviation, and that deviation is usually known as magnetic declination, and it is around 23.5 degree. Fine. Next, similarly, there is your magnetic inclination, declination and inclination. Now, your inclination is actually related to the longitudes. Now, your declination is related to the longitudes, whereas your inclination is related to your latitudes. And remember that your magnetic field around the globe is also not going to remain the same throughout the entire surface of the Earth. Now just have a look at these magnetic field lines that are coming out of this. This is your Earth's geographic North Pole. This is your geographic South Pole. This is actual north and south pole of the magnet. But when we are using compass or any other commercial magnet, we always name this as the North Pole in order to remove the confusion among the masses, because everybody is not an engineer or a physicist. Okay, so this is your South Pole. So in this way, we used to develop the magnets in the laboratory or in the factories. Okay, fine. Now, you can see obviously there is an angle of deviation between the geographic axis, or the geographic axis is nothing but the axis which is going to be means a straight, and this is the axis of rotation, and there is a deviation of this angle, and this deviation is 23.5 degree centigrade. It means 5 degree. Okay, fine. Next comes your inclination. Now you see that near this North Pole, this line is not far away, whereas towards this equator, it is elongated. So naturally, over here, the distance between this magnetic field line and the distance between the magnetic field line near the pole is very, very different. Okay, so this deviation is known as magnetic inclination. Okay. So these are not in your course, but still then just have some look. Okay. So let us move on. Next comes your magnetic poles and your electric charge. Okay. So as I told you that there are a lot of similarities between your electrostatic field and your magnetostatic field. Okay, fine. Your electrostatic field is created because of some charge. It may be an isolated charge, plus charge, or a minus charge, or a positively charged point charge, or a negative point charge, or it may be because of a positively charged body or a negatively charged body. So these are actually responsible for creating an electric field. But what is the source of this magnetic field? It is a magnet. So that magnet may be a permanent magnet or it may be an electromagnet. But the thing is that unlike an isolated positive charge or a negative charge, you cannot get an isolated north pole or a south pole. Or rather, I will say monopoles never exist, at least practically, in science. Because obviously there are some monopoles. When you will, obviously you are computer science students, you may not study all those things, but those who are from electrical or electronics background, they will be studying one paper on electromagnetic field theory, and in that they will be dealing with some monopoles. Only north pole is present, only south pole is present, but believe me, all of them are only theoretical. Practically what happens there, you cannot have a magnet with a single pole. definitely it is going to have a north pole and a south pole. That means you take a 1 meter long bar magnet, you break it into 10 centimeter bars, but still then each of these 10 centimeter bar will definitely have a north and south pole. So unlike an electric field where it is created by an isolated positive charge or an isolated negative charge, you cannot have a magnetic field with a monopole. Obviously, it is because of this north and south pole. Number one. Number two. Okay, not number two. Let us now move on. So this is the major difference between your magnetic pole and your electric charge. Even though both of them are having some sort of similarity like force of repulsion, force of attraction, polarization, or attracting a magnetized body by a magnet. So they do have some sort of similarities in their properties, but the truth is that the major difference is that magnetic poles always comes in pair, north and south pole. You can never have a individual or a monopole in a magnet. Next, let us come to the next concept. So once we have covered the charges in case of electrostatic field, we have talked about your electric field. Now we will talk about magnetic field. Okay. Now, your electric field is symbolized, or it is having a symbol Eve over which there is a arrow mark, which indicates that your electric field is a vector quantity. Similarly, your magnetic field is also a vector quantity, and it is represented by the letter capital B. Now, also magnetic field is also defined by the letter H. Okay, so B or H, both of them indicates your magnetic field. Okay, so electric field interaction in two steps. So how this electric field is actually interacting. Now, every time I will teach this chapter, I will always make a analogy between your electric field and magnetic field. In that way, it will be easier on your part to understand. Okay, number one, a distribution of electric charge at rest creates an electric field in the surrounding space. Well and good, we have learned this. Either a isolated positive charge or a negative charge or a charged body or a set of distribution of electric charge, all of them actually creates the electric field in the surrounding. Whereas in case of magnetic field, what happens? A moving charge or a current creates a magnetic field in the surrounding in addition to the electric field. What does this mean? That means suppose let us say that there is a conductor and this conductor is carrying a current. So if it is carrying a DC current, then obviously it is going to produce your magnetic field, and usually your magnetic field is going to look like this. Okay, the direction is wrong. It should be in this way. Okay, I'll tell you about the direction as well. Now, if some positive charges are moving, okay, they are moving in space, these are also going to create a magnetic field. Now, in place of this DC current, if I'll replace it with AC current, it is again going, it is also going to create a electric field. We will not talk about this AC current, or neither will talk about this electric field right now. This will be covered in chapter number 29. So let us just concentrate and say that when a DC current flows through a conductor, actually it is the charges which are actually flowing, and once the charge starts moving, it creates a magnetic field. That's it. Next. Next is an electric field exhausts a force on any other charge that is present inside the field. We all know. So if I am going to place a positive or a negative charge, depending on the polarity of the source, it is either going to be attracted or repelled. Similarly, if I am having a magnetic field and I am going to place a moving charge, another moving charge, so it will either be attracted or it will be repelled. Or if I am going to place another conductor, then also it is either going to be attracted or repelled. That means, suppose let us say this is a conductor which is carrying DC current. Now just near to it I will place another conductor over here which is again carrying some current, DC current. Then there will be some force of attraction between both of them. Similarly, if I'll bring another conductor which is carrying a DC current, but in the opposite direction, there will be some force of repulsion between them. So this is how the electric field and magnetic field interacts, and remember, they interact in a little bit different manner, because in case of electric field, the source is either a isolated positively charged body or a negatively charged body, but in case of magnetic field, it is only because either of a permanent magnet or because of the flow of electrons in a body, in a conductor. Okay, so with this we will end this class. So in the next class onwards, we will look over to some other aspects of this chapter. Okay, so have a nice time. So in the lab today, I'll show you some videos on this chapter. Okay, so we'll start the lab something around 2:15 or something like that. But you people, please be online by 2 o'clock. Thank you.